Now, a historic agreement has been reached which will see thousands of gold miners compensated for contracting silicosis or tuberculosis. It's the first class action settlement of its kind in South Africa. Mining analyst Peter Major joins us now from our Cape Town studio. So, Peter, thank you so much for coming through. A historic agreement, but what impact will it have in terms of how the mining sector does business, but also in terms of the lives of these workers that contracted these diseases while working on those mines?
Look, it's a very important day that they finally got agreement, because what's happening, the gold industry in South Africa is dying every bit as fast as the workers who have silicosis. So the longer this dragged out, the more the victims were dying, but the more that the people who had any ability to pay were dying. So it's in the nick of time. It's a large amount of money, 5 billion rand, and maybe it's not going to be that much in the end. There's still some finer details, like to find out exactly who is included in the settlement on the miners' side, and where they live, how old are they, how bad's their silicosis or other disease, and the mining companies themselves. It's a matter of allocating responsibility. And what's absent from this agreement that I see in the press anyways is the government. And the government made a lot more money out of the gold mines than the shareholders did. And the government built lots of roads and power plants and schools and libraries and aqueducts. So, you would think the government should have been leading this and try and make it conclude a lot sooner than it did. But it's still very good news for both sides. At least the gold mines have identified how much their liability is, and they've put a ring around it. And at least the miners who have diseases and who've been waiting and working and fighting to get some kind of benefits, at least they're going to get it now.
So, Peter, if we perhaps draw parallels with criminal matters where, if you enter into a plea bargain agreement, it basically entails you admitting to some kind of wrongdoing. Can that be extended to what has happened here, to say perhaps there's 7 companies, well-known companies, big companies that do mining in South Africa, are perhaps agreeing to some kind of culpability that perhaps they failed to take the measures they could have taken to make sure that their workers don't contract these diseases?
Look, things are definitely different now than they were 30 years ago, 50 years ago. My grandfather died of silicosis at 43. My father died at 56. People didn't know how bad it was decades ago. And then when they did learn about it, they did start taking measures to preclude it or to lessen the effect. And I think when I started in South African mining in 1982, the checks were very regular then, and people were getting transferred. If they picked up any silicosis, you get transferred to a different part of the mine. And the mine was learning all the time. Even today, we're learning things that we didn't know a year ago, 10 years, 20 years ago. So is it criminal? Is it negligence? Is it ignorance? It's history. And you have to decide how much money, time, and effort do you want to put into historical problems instead of putting them into present and future problems. There's not going to be any gold mining companies in this country in another 3 years. So it's important that we settled now to try and help these men while they're still alive.
Geez, Peter, before I actually go forward with anything else, what you just said now is quite alarming. No gold mining companies in this country in another 3 years. As you say this, the company that's been running Evander Gold Mine actually just gave a signal that they'll be retrenching some 1,700 workers. This is Pan-African Resources.
Yeah, what's scary is these are pretty good gold prices. The rest of the world, which is another 199 countries, love these gold prices. They're all increasing gold production every year. But we have altered the environment in this country so much the last 20 years that it's virtually impossible now to mine gold and cover your costs, let alone return shareholders the money they put in, let alone return a bank the money it put in. Therefore, government has made virtually no money off of gold mines and taxes the last 5 or 6 years. Shareholders have made no money. And so our altered environment is just too toxic for gold mines to exist in this country. We've killed the industry that made this country. We still have 50% of the world's gold, and we don't know how to get it out and cover our costs. So this has got huge implications for the country and for the men that are so trained and qualified and good at gold mining. They will have nowhere to go in this country in another few years with their skills.
So when you hear the President Ramaphosa talking about the mining sector being a sunrise industry and sort of saying that it will play a key role in turning this economy around, what goes through your mind then? Do you see it as a sunset industry? Does the difficulty with gold make the whole mining sector a sunset industry?
This industry is what we choose to make it. We have taken lots of steps and measures and all kinds of legislation and actions that have made it into a sunset industry. The rest of the world has made gold mining into a sunrise industry. We can make this whatever we want it, but we have to decide. It's not just talk. Do we want to make gold mining a sunrise industry? Do we want to go back to having 500,000 men employed on the mines? Because we're down to 100,000 now, and it's going to drop below that very quickly. So we can consciously make it if we want it, but it's going to take a lot of people pulling in the same direction. It's going to take a lot more than talk. It's going to take a lot of actions and a lot of hard work.